I think we're about there. Well, good morning and welcome to this morning's Finance, Audit and Scrutiny meeting. And very nice surprise to see Colin. You're sitting at the table so you can hear, aren't you, basically? Okay. So the first item on the agenda is declarations of interest. Do we have any? Okay. In that case, moving on to agenda item 2, the minutes of the previous meeting. Councillor Bills.
Chairman, I propose we accept these as a correct record.
Okay, seconded by Chair of Council, which takes us to agenda item 3. Oh, sorry, all those in favour? That's passed. Agenda item 4, Council Tax 2016-17. Over to Ben. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This is quite a technical paper, but it's a statutory requirement for us to set our council tax and business rates base for collection of income to the authority from a local basis. All the calculations are set in front of you. Looking back over last year's, the papers were quite thin last year, so hopefully I've provided you a bit more detail about how the bases are actually set and what's incorporated in them. I think it's fairly self-explanatory, so I'll take any questions you may have on this. Normally we would accompany this paper with the level of council tax setting, but that paper has been deferred to full council for next Tuesday. The actual council tax setting paper will be at full council next Tuesday in the paper set.
Councillor Billsborough.
Chairman, yes, I've been through these kind of calculations before many times. It's only a calculation, arithmetical calculation of council tax bases and what we can collect on, etc., etc. I've read it through. We're not setting the council tax on this, so I propose we accept these formula as a council tax base.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
All those in favour? Okay, I think that's unanimous. Agenda item 5, fees and charges for the upcoming financial year. Ben again, please.
Thank you. Unfortunately, my colleague can't be present with us this morning to present this. Before you have the fees and charges for the Democratic and Corporate Service and the Finance and Resources business units. Not a great deal to say other than they have been uplifted by a small percentage at times. Actually, in fact, we have made some reductions to actually round the figures to sensible roundings of 5 and 10p's rather than having 1, 9, 5 pences. So for the majority of the initial costs, they have been kept the same. I think the only salient points to bring out are 3.2 on the report for the sale of the register of the electors, which has been increased by 6.2% to £230. We sold 4 of these in 2015-16, so it's not going to be the saviour of our finance. This is at this stage. Take any further comments on this one? Very little there.
I was going to say, having read this in a lot of detail, I am prepared to recommend this proposed recommendation. It is part of a trend in the wake of the RSG figures. Then we need to be considering reviewing our fees and charges constantly. This is fairly modest. It won't be as modest across the board, that's for certain, but I think we need to start somewhere. Thank you.
Seconded.
Yeah, absolutely. I was only going to say, actually, just with regards to 3.2, and I know it is, we're talking pennies, but I was just going to say, we've only sold 4 of them. If you were interested in buying one of these, you're going to buy one, aren't you? So would it be better, can we just stick that up to 250 quid? Or are we bound by 6.2% or anything? I'm just saying, if you're in the market for a list, you're going to pay 250 quid. You're not going to say, well, 230 I'll give you. Do you know what I mean? Whereas every 20 quid we can lay around is nothing we need.
Generally speaking, it's political parties that are purchasing.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine a scenario though whereby you were in the market for one and you say, that's 20 quid too much for me? I thought, really, I don't know what anybody else thinks, just...
I'm more than happy for that to go through.
Yeah.
Fine with that. Yeah. We can add that to the...
in that case, yeah, I'm happy to second that.
So that's the proposal, is it?
Chairman, yes.
Yeah.
Looking at the fees and charges column on page 21, which is on the left-hand side, I've not worn these for 2 years, and I still don't need them. I had great difficulty in reading the small print. It's a strain. Could I request that the print is somewhat larger? I recall several years ago we agreed that the... Pardon?
Glasses.
I'm not talking about that, if you don't mind. I'm talking generally about, we agreed about several years ago that the print would be size 12 font. And since then, we appear to be having these small print things, which are a disadvantage. So, you know, perhaps the chairman would like to enlarge on this.
Yeah, I have every sympathy with people who struggle with small font. I'm getting into that category myself. However, I also sympathise with the amount of paper we have to generate from our council. And we have discussed this many times. Councillor Bilsborough is absolutely right. But we have said frequently that if people want to read the figures in detail, they can do it online, where they can extend the font size to whatever size they like.
Yes.
It is very, very simple to do so. So I would urge members to use the online access to increase the font size and let us reduce paper costs as much as possible, please.
I did, Chairman, at home. I did expand it on my computer, but I say it's not good like this. But I'll leave it at that, Chairman.
Well, I sort of, in a way, I agree with you. However, I would have said this font size is considerably bigger than quite a lot of the fonts we get in tables. I mean, I'm quite happy with that font size. However, you have a little bit, you guys have done a little bit more work than we, haven't they?
I'll leave it then, yeah.
So we have the amendment that Councillor Neil wanted to change it to 250, I think. Any other comments? So is it seconded? I'm not quite sure. It's seconded. Okay. Can we take it to a vote then? Okay, I think that's gone through all right then. Which brings us to agenda item 6, budget estimates for the upcoming year.
Thank you, Chairman. Set in front of you on this report are a review of current progress against budget. When I say current, it's the period November 2015, and a view towards the next 2 years for those cost areas that are relevant to this committee. The reports, hopefully, I take on board your point about the font size, Councillor Bilsborough, because actually the appendices are of a similar scale, but it's quite difficult to convey these figures in a much larger size at present. The budget progress can be seen within the tables and the appendices. The key, I suppose there are 2 key variances I wanted to bring to your attention. First of all, in terms of staff vacancies in the corporate, finance, corporate and shared services sections. They've prevailed through the majority of this financial year, have been, as you to yourselves and to myself and our senior officers, senior leaders, as quite a problem for us and a difficult situation to get beyond. I mean, we have now filled the 2 key principal accountant posts in the finance team fairly recently in January, and we are getting to the point where we are getting back to a full strength team there. That's not me saying that we are on the straight and narrow already, but we are at the point we can start to make good progress now and actually build on the things that need to be done. I will say more, I think, next week at the full council at the budget report about kind of progress and developments. But in terms of this paper, we have got a major variance in our staff vacancies. We have part used that from contractors, bringing the contractors to specific areas such as adult social care, education finance, and at the moment capital financing. But it's kind of a risk area for us. The other key variance I want to bring to your attention is on page, sorry, be more prepared for this. 37, which is one of the appendices, Finance Corporate. Members will note that there's actually quite a big variance between the approved budget for 15-16 and the likely outturn for 15-16. And the reason for that variance is detailed in the commentary below, but it's due to removal of a technical adjustment. There was actually blurring the clarity of this paper and actually looking to uplift the expenditure that was due to occur. So that once that technical adjustment is removed, we've got a lot more alignment between the budgets and the actual spend in that cost area. 16-17 and 17-18 budgets have been prepared for you. They are based on, I suppose, the most significant increase of uplift has been in salaries. That is not due to pay rises, it's due to actually two external pressures that we have. One being that for most of the local government pension scheme, staff members are essentially contracted out, of the state pension scheme. In 16-17, in 15-16 there was a consultation. 16-17 there was a removal of 3.5% benefit effectively that was placed on employers and employees. So it means that as an employer, our pension costs will be 3.5% of basic more than previously. Additionally, we have got actuarial costs of our pension scheme, which have increased year on year to meet the costs of previous posts and positions. Looking at pension in a long-term view under the new IAS 19 statute. So that's the predominant reason for this increase in salaries. It's not down to above inflation pay rises because we are pegged to the NJC rates. So I just wanted to bring those are the key factors that are coming through for the 16-17, 17-18 budget at this stage. So I'd welcome any comments from members.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Councillor Billsborough.
Yes, Chairman, I have a general question. Do we still recharge other departments with services rendered by one department?
Councillor Wilson, yes, we do. The figures contained in this report do not include those recharges or any capital elements. So what you see here is a pure service use. As a kind of year-end accounting adjustment, we do recharge services for things such as finance, IT, HR and premises,
yes,
and certain other areas.
It's sometimes difficult to follow, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But on a further point, on page 29, where it says premises costs, employers, it's, the outturn for this year just ending is £120,000, and next year it goes down to £26,000. Why is that? Page 29, this is employers.
Yes, certainly.
Employees.
Yes,
Yeah.
as part of the budget, so we've had to essentially refresh our whole budgeting process this year. We haven't been able to rely on previous year's work. So as part of that, we've gone to each and every budget holder with a list of the staff that are working in their areas. And each of us as members of staff are aligned to a specific cost centre. And in terms of the corporate properties, some of the strategic development areas, some of the finance and HR staff, our percentages have changed this year. So it's on the basis of discussions with budget holders to actually say, well, actually, no, that person doesn't work 100% in corporate properties. They work 25% in there and 50% in another area, such as flood defence. So this is accounting for all those changes that have been fed through.
So I presume this is on page 32 now, corporate government and scrutiny. I presume the same argument applies. The outturn for this year is at 56,000. This is the top line. Employers, 56,000, and then for next year it goes down to 22,000. Is that for the same reason? Not sleight of hand, but adjusting resources?
It's adjusting the, I mean, in terms of net, all the staff are allocated to a specific cost centre. This has been a kind of equalisation of those across the areas they're actually working on rather than kind of historic tendencies.
Well, in that case, you've answered my other questions I might have had, right? Okay.
Councillor Gottick, and welcome to your first FAS meeting.
Thanks.
Okay.
If if I could just ask a question about page 28, when you have flagged the fact that we're going to have a condition survey on our corporate properties, I should say. Have we made any provision in the budget for work that might result after that, or are we just going to react, if you like, to the findings of the condition survey? Because obviously it could be quite substantial.
Yes, it could be quite substantial. We have got some provision in terms of the revenue budget for the coming years, and there was some in there anyway, so we've kind of done an essential calculation prior to the condition surveys and what we believe will be spent. The capital programme that is going before you as members next Tuesday also contains some further capital spend. But so yes, in answer to your question, yes, we have made a provision for it. Whether it be sufficient at this stage, I can't venture an opinion.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah. One further question, Chairman. Again on page 28, paragraph 3.8, it talks about general grants which we get coming in. The Chancellor of the Exchequer is going to do his budget in about 2 weeks' time. Can we rely upon the grants that we think we might get, or is it still an open-ended check? Perhaps it's an unfair question, but a lot depends on this when we set the council tax.
Sorry, excuse me. Yes, a lot of the assumptions do depend on this, but I mean, our core grant from government is revenue support grants, RSG, and for 16-17 that's just under 1.9 million. Now, the government have provided the 4-year settlement, but actually beyond 16-17 all the figures are indicative. So yes, it is. We have to base our projections on an assumption-led basis, and we assume that comes in as it's
right,
going to.
I'll leave it until next week when we.
Yeah, maybe more of a discussion then. Thank you.
I don't think it's going to. I mean, things are significantly worse since the autumn statement, so I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't expect anything too pleasant from. I think you have to be, don't you? Are there any other comments? Well, I think it's a proposal. Would anyone like to propose? What are we doing?
Propose it.
Okay. Okay. All those in favour? Okay, thank you very much. Which brings us to agenda item 7, the Community Fund.
Chairman, I must declare an interest. I've forgotten. I'm a performing member of the Folk Club, and they're asking for money.
Okay, certainly. Okay.
Does that leave us quorum? Yeah.
No, I'm not paid by them, but I'm part of them. So, Folk Club.
Councillor Billsborough, I was only checking that we would be in quorums. That was all.
You have a quorum.
Okay, fair enough. Richard's going to take this in the absence of Mrs. Pritchard.
Thank you, Chairman. This paper is to put before members a request for a community grant pursuant to Section 100 of Section 1 of the 2000 Local Government Act. The Isles of Scilly Folk Club are requesting a grant of £500, I believe, in order to put on their annual folk festival. The papers are there in support. Happy to take any other questions. There is money available in the community fund at this current time, as set out at paragraph 4.1 of the paper, and I believe we have granted such funds previously to this group.
Chairman, on the basis that we have supported this good cause many years previously, I'm more than happy to recommend that we support it once again.
I'm happy to second that.
Okay, and all those in favour? I suppose on that basis, Councillor Billsborough could come back in. There's still, it's not all used up, is it, the community fund?
No, there's still remaining.
Yes.
There'll be £3,000 left in the pot after this.
Is that next year or this year?
So for this year, I believe that it's carried over, but
Okay,
Section 151 officer
right.
should be able to.
I was just sort of curious. Right, agenda item 8, the risk management. I spent a considerable time going through this, and it is a bit like the book of Revelations. It's not exactly cheery reading, but are there any comments, or are you going to take it?
Thank you, Chair. The risk management, or corporate risk management, is based on a policy that a risk management strategy that members agreed in their December meeting of last year. The paper is for noted and provides members with the information and the risks identified by the senior leadership team and the chief executive, and the mitigating actions that have been put in place to manage the risks. So this is paper for noting, and I'm very happy to answer any questions.
In the absence of the chairman, may I make a comment? Given that we have discussed this in some detail at several meetings and we have had workshops on the subject too, I am happy to propose the recommendation that we note the current corporate risks affecting the council and the rest of the record.
Chairman,
yes.
if I may ask a question, there's a number of items where they show the risk in red.
There are a few.
And red with a high number is either major or catastrophic. And there are a number of items here when you go through these charts where there's red items. At the last meeting, December, I asked a question. I asked if there were enough resources to mitigate the high-risk area. And the chairman, Marcus, that is your good self, said that they were. So are we happy now that we have enough resources to mitigate all these red areas?
Well, I think it's sort of, rather like one of the specifically, actually you've got the plan mitigating actions there. However, I mean, I think it's got a little bit more red than it was in December, really. And I think in December we were discussing whether to adopt the risk management policy as opposed to, we're actually using it now as opposed to adopting it. I think were we getting a draft in December? I'm trying to think back now.
If I can come in there, perhaps help the chairman on this point. So the members approved the risk management framework in December 2015. What members have before them now is essentially the work that the officers have done to identify the risks within the authority. Those red risks have been identified as matters where they are concerned by the officers involved as to what's occurring in the authority, and then flowing through the tables, which you'll find in the appendices, are the mitigating actions that we believe could be put in place to help resolve those red issues and to lower the level of risk attached to them. In terms of the paper that's before you, or the papers that are before you, because at the current time we're looking solely at the corporate, high-level corporate risks here, those high-level red risks feed in essentially to the business unit risks below, and in terms of mitigating those risks, it's essential that members note the steps being taken as set out in the reports at paragraphs 3.3 or 3.4 onwards to show what steps are being taken by the officers to try and reduce those risks, or that they have taken to reduce those risks at the current time.
Well, okay, Chairman, it's just that I'm very nervous and apprehensive that if we did fail, it would not be catastrophic. Churchill would call it cataclysmic. We must be sure that that these red areas are not going to get us into trouble. That's all I'll say now.
Well, that's exactly the purpose of this tool as a risk management. So you identify the highest risk to this authority, and then you create actions around that to manage those high risks and mitigate those risks as much as possible.
They're triangular road signs. They're telling you there's a threat up ahead, basically, and therefore you have to do something about it.
I agree, Chairman. It's just at the end of the day, if anything goes wrong, it's the members who will be on the dock, not the officers.
Well, yeah, but again, really, the reason we have this is to highlight areas, and highlight areas in a fairly easy to see manner. I mean, I think in terms of perhaps papers we've had in previous years, it's pretty stark, the situation. So I very much like this, this new structure. Anyway, I think it's been... Oh, sorry, thanks, Councillor Gossett.
Sorry, yes, just while fully recognising Councillor Bilsborough's concerns, I'm concerned as well. However, I would say I'm actually not concerned by the amount of red. In a way, I'm quite reassured. If we've got a problem and we've actually adopted a risk management policy, it would be, in a way, quite improper for us not to have this flagged if it really is a concern, which I have no doubt it is. Then obviously, even if it looks a bit scary, to use a very simple phrase, it's got to be there so that we recognise it, and only in recognising it can we move on. However, can I just quickly, perhaps please, seek assurance from the Chief Executive, which I'm sure he'll be able to give, that we will monitor this on a regular basis, because I don't think it's always been done in the past. Thank you.
That's correct. The senior leadership team review the risks every 2 weeks, review if there are any changes to the risks, and agree mitigating actions accordingly. The risk register as such will be, of course, shared with members for noting on a regular basis.
Thank you.
Just to build on what the Chief Executive said there, in terms of an embedding process across the authority, these risks have been built up by flowing through from the bottom of the organisation, and there'll be regular monthly meetings between myself and the risk manager, Dan Marcus, with business units to keep a monitor on these risks, which will then feed into the business unit risks, which will then feed into the bi-weekly meetings that the senior leadership team will be holding.
Well, I spent considerable time going through this at the weekend, and it struck me, actually looking at everything, the detail that comes up more than anything else, apart from just lack of resources, was housing. It was just, each one was associated with housing, like certainly staff resilience. So it helps us to give us a good guideline to move forward within the context of the corporate plan as well. And housing is what it's striking me as perhaps the main issue looking into the future. Just I'm actually assessing what the reading I did over the weekend. Anyway, we have a... Has it been proposed and seconded? Okay, all those in... It's to note, wasn't it?
Second that.
Okay. All those in favour? I think that's passed, and thank you. All right, we're on agenda item 9. Oh, we've just done 9.
No, we've just done 8.
Just done 8, okay.
To follow on from the high-level corporate risks as set out by the Chief Executive, agenda item 9 deals with the specific business unit risks for the corporate, democratic and corporate business unit. Hopefully, members will take some solace from the fact that a number of those risks are actually in amber and not up in red. However, they do feed into the high-level corporate risks. So those highlighted in amber should, of course, still be monitored and reviewed on a regular basis to ensure that they don't creep up and or, well, hopefully they will creep downwards.
I think it rather lays the situation quite starkly that we should take solace that a number of them are in amber. However, Councillor Bilsborough, I think you were first.
Yeah, no, it was the Chairman who was first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, well, thank you.
Okay.
I was going to say, given that this is subject to regular review, I will propose a recommendation.
Yes, Chairman, I'll ask the same question. Do we have the resources to mitigate these risks still?
At the current time, the Democratic and Corporate Unit is 2 members of staff down, if you're referring to that as resources. In terms of other back office resources, I'm sure my colleague, the Section 151 officer, will talk about some of the issues that he's currently facing, which create perennial issues.
Councillor Grottick.
Thank you. Can I ask a question, and can I ask for my question and the answer to be minuted, please? Can Mr Barriston give some clarification on CD 007, the Council's risk of being subject to litigation? Because I remember that in our last auditor's report, we were told that the Council was facing probable legal action. I'm very pleased to see that it seems to have moved to an amber number 12, and I'm not asking for any sensitive information, but could you please give us an update?
Of course, Councillor Grottick. The removal of the matter to an amber rating, it reflects the fact that some litigation could occur within the next 12 months. The local authority, by its very nature, could at any time be subject to litigation as a result of any actions it takes, and this isn't reflective of any particular one incident.
Thank you, but I'm sure you'll agree the use in the auditor's report of the word probable does suggest a certain degree of, how shall I say, well, probability.
At the current time, I'm unaware of any pending litigation against the authority.
That clarification is welcome, thank you.
Any other comments? Has it been seconded? Okay, all those in favour then? Okay, that's actually carried. Which now brings us to risk management again, agenda item 10.
Thank you, Chairman. In the same vein, presented before you are the finance resources strategic risks. Only one of those items is unfortunately amber at this stage.
Chair of Council.
Yeah, I will recommend this in the same vein as the others. What I would like to say is I was very encouraged to hear the director, the senior manager for finance and resources comments that his department is slowly coming up to strength. That's very welcome news. I realise it's not a quick fix and a lot of hard work, but I also wanted to flag up so that everybody is aware to reiterate the pressures that the finance department is under, but also I know that several members of our workforce, but notably the senior manager and the chief executive in conjunction with the LJ, have been working completely unreasonable hours and through the weekend to try and get our finance papers ready and whatnot. So I wanted to thank them for this hard work. There are a lot of pressures on that department and it is vital to the success of the council that it's all got right, but thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, for your kind comments.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that really, because I do think though that you'll probably be aging faster than President Obama, I think, at the end of this period. Thank you again.
Yes.
Councillor Bilsborough.
Chairman, on page 80, when you look at 3.2 and you look at the chart there and the risk, now this really does worry me because of the consequences of a failure are major. I'm hoping now that we do have the finance staff or will have to, in the end, get this down. But at the moment, it looks very serious. Could you comment on 3.2 and the red on it?
I think we have had an indication that staffing resilience is probably gone down a little, but I'm sure Ben can.
Having said what I said earlier, staffing is still quite fragile in the department. We have two vacancies currently, and a number of staff on sickness leave of varying reasons and degrees. So it's not something that's going to be resolved immediately. But
I do appreciate the staff difficulties, but I'm just hoping that this will be now eased a bit, in the coming months.
Yeah. I mean, I will come into this in next week, but actually, thank you, Councillor Bilsborough. We have actually at the moment got some considerable support provided by the Local Government Association, primarily towards our budgeting situation, but also that will help us look to present a credible medium-term financial plan in the first quarter of the coming year. So that support is extremely welcome on my part, and does help to assist us.
Councillor Neil.
Thank you. I'd like to echo the Chairman's counsels regarding the Finance Department. Thank you all very much. But also, I'm imagining that although, well, firstly, in response to Councillor Bilsborough's comments about this particular bit being serious, I think it's all serious. That's the whole point, isn't it? With regards to staffing resilience, the fact that it's still red, I think that's just because previously, I appreciate the fact that we're doing better than we were, but we're still not all the way home. The fact of the matter is that the reason it's still red is because we don't have a colour worse than red, which is what it would have been last time.
Yeah. Any other comments? I think we only need the second of them. Okay. All those in favour? Okay, thank you very much. And that which terminates the meeting at 10:05. Thank you very much for attending. It'll be a lot longer than that.
Business plans get